I can't explain what funk really is about. It's a feeling.
Funk has its own distinct flavor.
When you say Dayton, Ohio in the music industry, yeah, I know about Dayton, Ohio.
Funk not only moves, it
removes. It's not just jamming. It's a way of life. It's a way of doing things.
Dayton, Ohio, a glittering gem nestled on the banks of the Great Miami River. This is the destination for a wide array of music beginning just 60 years ago.
Jazz, funk, bluegrass, gospel. Dayton's culture is so rich in music, it's just tremendous.
This was kind of an innovative place where guys were working jobs in the day and they were playing bluegrass music at night.
All the music is different, but it's speaking the same language.
Dayton supported this amazing heritage by placing a huge importance in music education.
A lot of money was spent on these music programs.
Came from the schools and came from their band programs.
Empowered through education and creativity, Dayton musicians created their own brand of one of the strongest grooves out there, funk music. The sounds of Dayton heard around the world were created by some of the most iconic funk bands of all time.
We had a lot of fun. We constantly toured and constantly made records.
It all had kind of that Dayton sound, even though none of the groups sounded exactly the same. They each kind of had their own little flavor.
So much of Dayton funk is about Dayton and feels like it was written by the community for the community.
However, over the years, funk has seemingly disappeared, both from popular music and the Dayton landscape.
You don't see the bands like they used to. When you play an instrument, that stimulates your mind, heart, and soul and body. And that was big in schools, instruments.
I can't believe there are people growing up in these schools that have no idea who the Ohio players are, who Lakeside is, or Heatwave, or Zap. It's such a huge part of the city's culture, not just the music culture, but a part of everyone's lives.
Discovering where the funk has gone means going back to the beginning of funk's history in Dayton.
In the 1940s and 50s, Dayton really was a boom town. It was an industrial giant.
Known as the city of 1,000 factories, Dayton benefited greatly from the presence of major economic corporations such as National Cash Register, General Motors, and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. African Americans from all over the Jim Crow South were arriving in Dayton in the hopes of finding new opportunities for work. This brought culture and art never before seen in the Ohio Valley.
They were bringing blues, R&B, gospel, other roots music, and all that stuff was coming to the area. These people were working together.
And it was a good place for the music to grow and to prosper.
As families shared their roots with new neighbors and the city, these cultural traditions were being passed on.
My parents bought me an organ that sits on your lap and with the little push buttons on the side.
My dad was a musician, loved music. He was a jazz aficionado, knew about all kinds of jazz artists. And my mom played all reeds. So I came from a musical family.
It became important in the schools to teach these new generations the history of music.
There was a thriving instrumental music program in the Dayton Public Schools.
They had a program called Title I. They had free instruments. You can get any instrument that you want.
Title I provided federal funding to support music education in schools serving low-income students. This program aimed to enhance music programs by providing resources such as instruments, music teachers, and related activities benefiting students across the United States. Music education thrived within Dayton Public Schools, benefiting from the city's prosperity and commitment to youth development. This emphasis on music paved the way for many students to pursue involvement in the marching band upon entering high school.
Those marching bands really were kind of the draw to get people involved in music in the schools.
This allowed a lot of the musicians to really hone their skills that they had developed in these high schools.
Many found solace and expression by forming garage bands outside of school, channeling their energy into music making. This not only nurtured their artistic talents, but also fostered a sense of community and belonging beyond the classroom.
Bands were on every street corner just about, everybody had a garage band.
And a lot of the groups, we all played in bands in high school because you had a lot of talent shows.
With their creative talents and youthful voices, these groups began to showcase their musical prowess through electrifying Battle of the Bands competitions.
In high school at that time, they would have talent shows where they had Battle of the Bands, all that kind of stuff. So we became part of that, yeah.
When Bootsy was a local band, we were local bands, and we played together.
We said, okay, we're gonna battle you. I say, well, listen, your band's gonna take on my band, winner takes all, and that was it.
As music was not only an outlet for many of these young talented artists, it was also an escape from the troubling times. During the height of the 1960s, the United States was embroiled in the civil rights movement, a turbulent era marked by intense racial tension and social upheaval. Dayton, as one of the most segregated cities in the nation, experienced devastating race riots.
All these thriving businesses along West 3rd Street in the aftermath of the 1966 riots, some of them closed their doors.
And this had a really tremendously negative impact.
With the construction of the freeways I-75 and US 35, the West Side was isolated from the rest of the city of Dayton.
The river, as a geographic barrier, also sort of became a conceptual barrier. Blacks lived on the west side of the river and whites lived on the east side of the river.
The West Side, this vibrant area of African American life in Dayton, was now cut off.
You could see there was a bit of a shift toward people starting to live in poverty.
As the turbulence of the 1960s unfolded, young artists and influential figures like James Brown recognized the power of their voices to unify communities and bring people together in the pursuit of social change.
Kids would grow up listening to James Brown or all the musicians in his band, like Bootsy Collins, and they say, I want to be like him.
Well, we were mimicking who we heard. We were mimicking James Brown. We were mimicking Bootsy Collins. We were mimicking George Clinton.
Music became a conduit for expression and a source of inspiration during times of unrest.
1967 is really when funk began. Cold Sweat from James Brown is what really a lot of people consider the first funk song.
Inspired by the evolution of music, funk emerged onto the Dayton scene, introducing a fresh and captivating groove.
Because funk music is folk music. It's jazz, blues, gospel. It's a melting pot of music.
Jazz turned into R&B and soul, and that later turned into funk music by taking that R&B flavor and adding funk grooves to it.
From the mixture of those sounds, Dayton developed a new blend of music. Dayton wasn't just creating funk bands, it was innovating funk itself.
But Dayton was so unique. All the artists out of Dayton, Ohio did not sound the same.
It's quite rhythmic, it's quite syncopated.
And there were a lot of keyboards, was very important to it, mixed with like a big emphasis on the brass.
With many groups forming in Dayton, each funk band had its own sound and identity that connected them to the local community.
And how it became faze-o, we were singing a song, and the lead singer said, "This is faze-o." And we looked at him and was like, "Oh man, I like that, faze-o." And we said, the O can represent Ohio.
Other bands, such as Lakeside, were named after specific areas in the city, like Lakeside Pavilion. There was even a funk band simply named Dayton.
These bands are clearly looking backwards and looking at their local community.
The roots of funk music were deeply tied within the Dayton community. Everyone had one goal, highlighting the sound coming out of the city.
Why we can say Dayton, Ohio is the funk capital of the world.
Funk didn't just stop in Dayton. The distinct sound spread at high-speed beats all across the nation.
The Ohio Players opened the floodgates. So many groups came in their wake, and they were very supportive of other bands.
We toured with the Ohio Players. We were the opening act. And that helped grow our audience, too, because it was the first time of them seeing us.
Montana, Florida, South Dakota, North Dakota, California, Oregon, everywhere.
Funk was a national success. In the 1970s alone, Dayton funk bands produced countless chart-topping hits. Funk music heavily influenced pop culture of the 70s and 80s.
To be on the top of the charts for 2 weeks was just, amazing.
They started putting records in movies. That's a Zap song.
These progressive and popular albums also gave more expression to the artists. Societal, political, and even sexual boundaries were pushed.
We had naked women on our album cover either, okay? we were kind of risque.
From the covers to the music, they had ushered in, this new era of Dayton music.
The fact that funk has been on just about every major airways in and out of the country, the impact.
While the success of funk was very prominent in Dayton, the need in the community was also very strong. Funk musicians responded by remaining rooted in their origins and actively contributing.
No fast cars, no huge houses, nothing like that. So we spent our money and we built a studio.
They could have easily gone to California, but they stayed here. They invested in this community, made it their home.
You're popular everywhere else except in your hometown, and they would be seen as rock stars, and here they were just local Dayton people.
The nightlife and club scene in Dayton offered people a chance to escape their troubles and enjoy themselves, fostering a sense of unity and togetherness.
Another common theme was partying or dancing, or kind of forget about the struggles of the day-to-day life and the kind of that blue-collar mentality.
What we wanted to do was entertain the listeners and the audience and to make them feel something.
Funk music brought bands together, it brought writers together, and I believe that's the essence at the core that helps build community.
While these breaks were helpful, the problems in society were still looming, and it all came to a head.
All of this is coming together to create a fantasy that perhaps people are latching onto because they need to escape. And then it begins to collapse.
In 1970, NCR Corporation had 20,000 employees. By the 1980s, there were only 5,000 left. The middle-class jobs that were so readily available in the 50s and 60s eventually left Dayton for cheaper labor elsewhere, leaving a hole in the community. These economic hardships didn't just affect working life, but also took a hit on the funk movement as well.
The demise kind of started with the increase in technology.
In a box, in a computer, there's no soul.
As drum machines and synthesizers became more accessible, nightclubs that once hired a 12-piece funk band could get the same music for a fraction of the price.
It became very individualized, and people could create funk music or music just on their own.
That's very appealing to promoters because while they're about the music, they're also about the money.
Mainstream music's changing taste forced hard times on funk artists. The systems that once supported the grooves of their youth began to topple.
Just precisely at the moment when the city of Dayton most needs it, these things are being taken away.
With the city in financial trouble, budgets everywhere were being cut.
Some of the first things on the chopping block when budgets are tight are the arts.
They took away after-school program funding.
The fact that they took instrumental music out of schools was crazy, okay? Because it gave so many kids an avenue to be able to do something that weren't athletically inclined.
From the public school's failing music program to the lack of opportunities remaining in the area, Dayton found itself facing the new millennium with a glaring absence in its cultural identity. The once thriving heartbeat of funk was forgotten amidst the city's struggles for survival. Dayton, weathering the aftermath of the 2008 recession and grappling with ongoing segregation, is now on a journey to rediscover and revitalize its rich heritage of funk music.
I invested my time, my money, and my effort because I want to see this happen, and I feel that this needs to happen for our community.
The Funk Center, a museum archiving the genre's greatest funk artists, is a testament to the dedication that the modern fans have to preserving funk's legacy.
Live entertainment, whether it's theater, dance, music, even visual art, I think are integrally connected to joy.
In the heart of Dayton, the Levitt Pavilion, established in 2018 as a part of the Levitt Foundation, serves as a beacon of joy for the community, offering free live music concerts. Among the most beloved genres featured is funk, resonating deeply with the local audience.
I can't begin to tell you, the secret sauce is come to a Levitt concert and watch what happens on the lawn.
You saw that sense of community again that was prevalent back in the 70s and 80s and still is now.
The city that had once forgotten funk found it again in the community where it was born.
The more I learned about funk, the more I thought of the importance of it in our community.
Dayton has already etched its sketch in marble funk music, the whole region.
It's a very positive and energizing music that sees, implicitly, it's seeing a future.
The future of funk and its preservation lies in the roots of music education.
It was the music teachers that really were a big influence on them, that encouraged them to play instruments, write their own music, get together after school with their friends, and start their own band.
It provides them with different outlet, a different way to be creative, to improvise on music, to paint, to dance. All of those kinds of things are really important.
The foundation of funk thrives in the minds of children searching to express themselves.
I'm told on a daily basis how grateful people are for what we have here.
The Funk Labs Dance Center, established in 2011, has offered children in Dayton a new method of expression, from hip-hop to Afrofusion to funk dance classes.
And all of those experiences, from learning to play an instrument, learning how to write music, learning how to get on stage and perform in front of other people, those do so much for students' social emotional learning.
And we couldn't think of anything better than, again, lifting up the voices of our youth.
For us here at the studio, getting out into the community and showing people what we're actually doing is important.
Creating an environment to help a new generation of musicians is what is contributing most to funk's legacy.
Sustaining legacy and what to leave behind is inspiration for someone to believe in themselves so we can have new music, and no matter what category it comes in.
While funk is not as prominent in today's world, the beat goes on. It's up to today's musicians and listeners to keep it alive.
Funk is not dead because it's all over the place.
It lives in us, and it lives in our bloodline. It lives in the people that are around us who love our kind of music.
Funk retains its essence in the city of Dayton, embedded deeply within the city's roots and identity.
One of the best ways we can preserve that or honor it is not just to play the music and listen to the music, but is to have that inspire us to do our own thing, to create our own music, to create our own voice.
But when you add music and the vibration of music and the opportunity to dance, you start creating social bridging.
There is a real and deep connection between music and human experience, used as a beacon of light and hope to guide us through times of need.
There's like a really deep feeling that artists get when they are experiencing the arts, and it's really an indescribable experience when you're moved by something.
I think music in general is really what keeps people alive. It's the way that they can express themselves. It's a way that they sort of feel the world, feel their friends, feel their family.
If all these people can come together because of this genre of music, which still has proven itself even in 2024 by the thousands in Dayton, Ohio, that's why I believe funk impacts community in a good way.
As years pass and the world around us evolves, music has been a constant companion. Although styles, trends, and even ways of listening have changed, like an immortal melody, the sounds of funk live on.
I think it's important to keep the music, keep the fact that funk was born and bred here in many ways, because, nobody else, no other city can claim that.
It's not New York, it's not LA, it's not Chicago. Doesn't mean that you can't get out and make music, do something that can impact the bigger world, that can have an impact beyond your community.
There are lots of things to be proud of in Dayton, and I think funk music is one of those things that the community really can be proud of.
Although the city has gone through its ups and downs, there is no denying that funk, the sound of Dayton, will always be shared and created for years to come.
Pursue it. Continue to pursue it. There will be obstacles. There will be roadblocks. Continue to pursue.
We all have a song. We all have a dream. We all have a vision. If you're in music and you write a song, you're writing about your experience and how you feel. That's music.
As long as if we have humans doing it, we all have a soul. So keep it funky.
This is the talk box. Hello out there, we want to say thank you. We love you, man, you are so cool. Thank you to all the sad fans.
That's it.